Hello, I'm Jeff Thielman, President and CEO of the International Institute of New England. Welcome to our Town Hall webinar, History as Our Guide, a century of immigrant support and today's policy priorities. Today's webinar is a reflection on what we have learned from 100 years of supporting refugees and immigrants in Greater Boston and how these lessons are guiding us as we respond to today's political landscape and the needs of refugees and immigrants in our communities. This afternoon, you will hear from our team about key moments in IINE's history, from our work battling anti-immigrant policies and racist quota systems, to our efforts supporting families fleeing the deadliest crises around the world, and how welcoming and helping refugees and immigrants has enriched our culture and economy. We'll share how these moments have shaped our programming today and informed our advocacy efforts. And you'll hear how you can get involved, including by joining us for a very special celebration on Wednesday, June 4th. We'd like to extend an invitation for you to join us for our Centennial Golden Door Award Gala next Wednesday, June 4th at the Omni Seaport Hotel. The gala is a special opportunity to celebrate 100 years of service in Boston, to highlight the immense contributions of refugees and immigrants, and to honor the brave individuals who have made Boston their home and everyone who has welcomed and supported them, including all of you. At the gala, you will hear personal stories of migration from clients and community members. There will be a special performance by the Afghan Free Harmonic Orchestra, and there will be an art exhibition that chronicles our history in Boston and the city's immigrant roots. You also can explore this exhibit on our website. The deadline to purchase tickets is this Friday, May 30th. You can scan the QR code on the screen or visit our website, iine.org, to secure your seat. Now let's dive into our focus for the conversation today, our historical work in Boston and how it mirrors our efforts today. Let's start with our mission statement. From our earliest days, the International Institute has focused on creating opportunities for refugees and immigrants to succeed. We do this through resettlement, education, career advancement, and pathways to citizenship, also known as legal services. Our clients come to Massachusetts and New Hampshire after fleeing persecution, life-threatening danger, and unlivable conditions in their home countries. New England is their chance at safety and opportunity. Now, more than ever, we rely on the support of our community to do this work. As the federal government turns its back on and villainizes refugees and immigrants, we're especially grateful to have such dedicated partners, including healthcare centers, schools, employers, and community organizations. And we're especially thankful for supporters like you, our volunteers, donors, and neighbors who make this work possible. Our theory of change is built to make sure that refugees and immigrants have the tools they need, not just to survive, but to build stable, fulfilling lives, and eventually to thrive and contribute in ways that strengthen all of us. We provide critical services that help people get on their feet, from English classes and job readiness programs to legal support and pathways for long-term integration. Our clients come to us at all stages of their journey, and they often return when new needs arise. That's why we call it a continuum of care. Our goal is to help every individual and family reach self-sufficiency as quickly as possible, because in the United States, there's no strong safety net. So getting to stability isn't just important, it's essential. During the webinar, I will be joined by my colleagues, Senior Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer Zan Weber and Director of Public Policy and Advocacy Bill Gillett. Zan and I will walk through our 100-year history in Boston and how lessons learned from this work inform our efforts today. Then Bill will join us to provide a timely update on the latest immigration policy changes and how we are responding. We ask that you use the Q&A feature to submit any questions throughout the program. Zan, Bill, and I will be available to answer them following the presentation. We will also be sharing a recording of today's webinar, along with the PowerPoint slides, by email later this week. Now, I'd like to take us back to when our Boston office's doors first opened. The International Institute of Boston was founded in 1924, 13 years after the first International Institute was opened in New York City in 1911. 1924 was the very same year that the United States passed one of the country's most restrictive immigration laws, which put strict quotas on who could enter the country based on their country of origin. The goal was to preserve what was then called the ideal of U.S. homogeneity. From the very beginning, the international institutes that opened in cities across the country took a different approach. The founders, including a group of compassionate women at the Boston YWCA, embraced the idea of cultural pluralism, the belief that our communities are stronger when we preserve and celebrate diverse backgrounds, cultures, and customs. That spirit of bravery and empathy has been at the heart of our mission ever since, and it's what continues to guide IINE's work today. Now, I'd like to invite my colleague, Senior Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer, Zan Weber, to join me.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is really special to us. As Jeff shared, we'll be walking us through some of the key moments in IINE's history in Boston and how those moments continue to shape our work today. When we talk about the challenges immigrants and refugees are facing in this moment, it's important to remember this isn't new for us. For more than a century, the International Institute has stepped up in moments when immigrants were being pushed out or targeted. In the early 20th century to the 1930s and 40s, during the Great Depression and World War II, fear of immigrants ran high, just as it does today. In response, the International Institute of Boston fought back against laws that would have deported immigrants simply for receiving federal assistance and against efforts to place others in internment camps. These conditions really do resonate today. Fast forward to 1961, when the young President John F. Kennedy took office, IIB sent a letter calling for bold immigration reforms. We had three primary asks. One, that the government abolish the racist quota system. Two, that it prioritize family reunification and refugee protection. And three, that it welcome immigrants whose skills could strengthen the economy. That same year, Kennedy signed a bill reflecting those requests, and just a few years later, the quota system was fully dismantled. Advocacy really does help. We actually have a clip to share from a speech that Kennedy made in 1963 at ADL entitled, "We Are a Nation of Immigrants."
It is a proud privilege to be a citizen of the great republic, to hear its song sung, to realize that we are the descendants of 40 million people who left other countries, other familiar scenes, to come here to the United States to build a new life, to make a new opportunity for themselves and their children. I think it is not a burden, but a privilege to have the chance in 1963 to share that great concept which they felt so deeply among all of our people. To make this really, as it was for them, a new world for us, and indeed for all those who look to us. That is what this organization has stood for 50 years. That's what this country has stood for 200 years, and that's what this country will continue to stand for. Thank you.
Kennedy's words and the progress that was won in those years remind us that lasting change is possible. And in the face of anti-immigrant sentiment and legislation as it is today, the best thing to do is keep fighting. And that's what we're doing here today.
Last summer, Zan and I took a trip to the U.S.-Mexico border with our partners at the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, or USCRI, to gain a better understanding of asylum policy and to hear the experiences of asylum seekers firsthand. Even before the highly restrictive policies of the current administration were put into place, The system was flawed and inhumane. Migrants told Zan and I and others that the journey through Mexico to the border was more deadly than passing through the Darien Gap, a dangerous place between Colombia and Panama. They described being blocked and threatened by Mexican authorities. And if they did make it to the US border, they often faced a wait time of 8 months or more to get an appointment through the Customs Border and Protection 1 application. During that wait, families were incredibly vulnerable to exploitation, violence, and abuse by those looking to take advantage. Now, under the current administration, the right to asylum has been shut down almost entirely. That might feel like something happening far away, but its effects are being felt right here in New England. Thousands of Haitians have come to Massachusetts through our southern border. Now they are waiting on family members who won't be able to join them. Meanwhile, the adults and children who have been shut out from crossing are at great risk. And with foreign aid being slashed, the danger and deaths will only rise. At IINE, we are following in the footsteps of our predecessors and doing everything we can to push for change. Last July, Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey co-introduced legislation that would expand the federal government's role in supporting new immigrant families. IINE played a key role in shaping that bill. And we're continuing to speak out and advocate against efforts by the Trump administration to end humanitarian programs that have saved hundreds of thousands of immigrants, primarily from Central and South America, from life-threatening conditions in their home countries.
That brings us to our next key moment, supporting refugees and survivors of trauma. Long before the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program was formally established in 1980, we were already doing the work of welcoming people fleeing persecution and the world's most devastating crises. And ever since, we've remained focused on helping newcomers build stable lives by meeting their unique needs, hiring staff who share their languages and cultures, and supporting them as they strengthen new communities. A large part of this work has been caring for people who have experienced unimaginable trauma. For example, in the late 1940s and 50s, we helped resettle and support the Ravensbrück rabbits, women who had been disfigured by horrible medical experiments conducted in Nazi concentration camps. In the early 2000s, we developed new programs to support survivors of torture, war trauma, and human trafficking. Later in the 2000s, we welcomed former child soldiers from Sudan and created our Unaccompanied Children's Program to help children and minors fleeing danger to reunite with their families in New England. And in 2021, when Afghans fled the fall of Kabul, we launched new programs to support isolated Afghan women, many of whom came here without formal education or work experience. These are the efforts that have shaped our priorities today.
We're continuing to advocate for an effective refugee resettlement program because it saves lives, reunites families, supports our allies, and strengthens our communities. That means pushing for the reinstatement of the refugee program that was paused on day one of the Trump administration. It also means supporting the GRACE Act, which would commit the United States to welcoming at least 95,000 refugees each year. We're also fighting for the rights of children at the US-Mexico border. Right now, the federal government is separating families and sending children as young as 2 years old back into life-threatening situations. We're urging the administration to recommit to their safety. And in the meantime, we continue to care for the children already in our programs. Our Trafficking Victims Assistance Program, or TVAP as we call it, is still helping immigrant survivors of human trafficking to gain legal status, find employment, and rebuild their lives. And here, through our Willow Fund, which Zan led the creation of, we are providing tailored support to women and girls who navigate unique challenges during resettlement.
Another key focus of our work has been ensuring newcomers can enter and bolster the New England workforce. And we know that immigrants have always been vital to Boston's economy. At the start of the 20th century, they fueled the city's growth, filling jobs in our factories, building roads and transit systems, and unloading goods in the harbor. In the 1920s and 30s, we helped immigrant workers learn English and navigate relationships with their employers. In the 1940s, we helped newcomers fill critical wartime factory jobs and pushed for protections against hiring discrimination, advocating for what eventually became the Massachusetts Fair Employment Act. By the 1990s and 2000s, we were running job training programs in hospitality, construction, and healthcare, helping immigrants enter fields that needed skilled workers and offered real economic opportunity.
That work continues today. It's a fact that immigrants are essential to our region's prosperity. They fill workforce gaps, bring needed expertise, and help offset an aging population. That's why we tailor our English classes to focus on workforce preparation. We support job seekers with resume writing, applications, and interview practice. And we continue to expand our skills training programs. We have built strong relationships with local employers in a variety of industries who have welcomed the opportunity to fill open positions with dedicated and skilled immigrant workers. We're also advocating for smarter policies that will benefit immigrants and citizens alike. We push for dedicated funding in the Massachusetts state budget to expand vocational English for speakers of other language programs, so employers can find the workers they need and immigrants can access jobs that support their families. We fought back against legislation in New Hampshire that would have prohibited refugees from obtaining driver's licenses, a move that would have made employment nearly impossible for most, given the state's lack of public transportation.
As we've helped immigrants settle and integrate into life in the United States, we also celebrated and helped preserve their diverse cultures. This has been core to our mission since day one. In the 1920s and 30s, our offices were a hub for cultural expression. Greek youth groups performed plays, Syrian youth sang in Arabic, and Greek mothers hosted a book club. Visitors might have seen a Lithuanian art show or caught a performance by Ukrainian folk dancers. This focus expanded in the 1970s when IIB began hosting the Whole World Celebration, a multi-day festival of international art, food, and performances that drew tens and thousands of people. These programs and events were never just about entertainment. They were a way to foster understanding and connection. And we continue this bridge building today through Suitcase Stories, our live storytelling series where people share personal stories of migration and belonging.
This brings us to our final key lesson. The number of people who are being forced from their homes and countries is only increasing, and we must be prepared to help. Ever since our founding, there has been no shortage of need for our services, and that need has only grown exponentially in recent years, as Afghans were evacuated with little warning after the Taliban takeover. Ukrainians fled from the Russian invasion. More and more children sought refuge in the United States to escape increased violence in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Ongoing fighting in the Democratic Republic of the Congo caused a humanitarian crisis that displaced millions. Haiti became increasingly destabilized by gang violence, political unrest, and famine, forcing tens of thousands to leave their homes. And we know that forced displacement will only grow worldwide due to conflicts and climate-caused disasters. So while the current administration is doing everything in their power to limit legal immigration pathways, they cannot ignore the facts. More and more people will seek refuge outside of their home countries, and we must be ready to support them.
In the meanwhile, we're deepening our support for refugees and immigrants who are already here in our communities. There are hundreds of adults on our waiting list for ESOL classes and our workforce training programs, and our legal services team has been working overtime to help clients navigate changing immigration laws and to help them adjust their status. These efforts are guided by what is probably the greatest lesson we have learned: how to be resilient and adaptive. Despite the federal government's attempts to target our mission, our clients, and our funding, we're not going anywhere. Now we'd like to invite Bill Gillett to join us. Bill will expand on the recent changes to federal immigration policy.
Thank you, Zan and Jeff, and hello, everyone. As Jeff and Zan just noted, forced displacement has been on the rise for many years. To address this, the U.S. has created a number of humanitarian immigration pathways, nearly all of which the current president has suspended or dismantled over the past few months. These include the Refugee Admissions Program. Created in 1980 in collaboration with the United Nations, this program has seen over 3 million refugees welcomed into the U.S. over the last 45 years. Arrivals under this program have been given life-saving opportunity to build safe and successful lives for themselves and their families after having been forced from their homes and countries, typically with no choice but to live for years in subsistence conditions in refugee camps. The suspension of this program on the first day of the Trump administration stranded more than 20,000 people who had gone through an extensive vetting process of up to 2 years and were approved to begin their new lives in this country. This action left families separated and American allies, in the cases of Afghans who supported our troops and their families, stranded and in dire circumstances as the promise of safety and a new life in America, in return for their support of our troops, was broken. There was a court ruling calling for the admission of those refugees who were previously approved and set to travel before January 21st, but we are still waiting to see if the administration will abide by the ruling. Humanitarian parole programs were also expanded in recent years to create legal and more expedited processes for immigrants to enter the U.S. when their home countries become unlivable due to natural disasters and political conflicts. Over the past few months, the administration has terminated temporary protected status for Afghanistan and Venezuela and shortened the deadline for Haiti and has attempted to suspend the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Venezuelan humanitarian parole program. Termination of these programs means hundreds of thousands of immigrants have or will soon lose their right to stay and work in this country and will have to return to their home countries where the conditions that caused them to flee have not improved. Sending these individuals back means placing them in extreme and, in many cases, life-threatening danger. Not only are these policy changes cruel, but they are also having a devastating impact on our communities and economy. They are not focused on the expulsion of criminals. Rather, they result in the loss of thousands of productive and sorely needed workers across the country. We are meeting with state and federal legislators regularly to speak with them about what's at stake when we close our doors to immigrants. We are also partnering with local organizations in broad efforts to defeat anti-immigrant laws and practices in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and joining into national legal and advocacy efforts as our resources permit. Now I'd like to invite Zan and Jeff to join us again.
Thank you so much, Bill. I'm now going to moderate a question and answer period where we hope we can answer all of your questions. And I'll start with the first. Is IINE navigating the current Trump presidency differently from the first?
So I'm going to start to talk about the policies of the Trump administration, and then Zan's going to kind of talk about how we're navigating it. Yeah, let me just say this administration is much, much better prepared than they were the last time around. And Bill mentioned some of it, alluded to the fact that they're ignoring court orders. What's happening is they have a very clear strategy now to limit people who can come into the country and to take every step possible to scare people who are in the country and get them out. So it is all designed to get people out of the country. They are fighting back against court orders. They've got this nuanced response to a Supreme Court ruling that in the Abrego Garcia case, they are scaring people with ICE raids that include some of our clients who have been stopped. They are in the annual budget bill that the House Republicans just passed. They increased the fees for just about every United States Citizenship and Immigration Service filing. They have in this plan that they have, it cuts 4.5 million American citizen children from benefits because of the status of their parents. That's never happened before in the history of the country. They exclude people with asylum, refugees, temporary protected status holders, and others from public benefits. They are, putting 150 billion in the bill to basically give ICE free rein to do what they want. Many of our clients have received letters telling them to leave the United States, and even though they're lawfully here, and some have left, sadly. And there's threats in this bill to punish states if they use taxpayer dollars to provide healthcare, state taxpayer dollars to provide healthcare to certain immigrants. So this administration has a whole plan right now. They campaigned on the idea of ICE arresting only criminals, dangerous criminals that were going to get off the streets. That's just not true. They're scaring and they're capturing and arresting rather people who are completely innocent, peaceful people who have done no crime. And they've deported some of those people to foreign countries, and they've ignored due process, which I frankly never expected, or at least I never expected that would happen. So that's what's happening with the Trump administration, and I'll leave it at that.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. And I'll just add that the Institute is definitely responding very differently to Trump too. One reason is because we have so many more clients in our programs that we're supporting than in the previous administration. We served over 21,000 people last year, most of whom were invited to the US on protected status that is temporary and that is volatile under this administration. In fact, we've just saw the revocation of Venezuelan temporary protected status. So there is so much at stake for our clients and our communities and the economy, and I think the country as a whole, in the changing policies we're experiencing. We've also really done a lot of work to try to help people understand, even in the face of these really unexpected and incredible violations of their welcome here and their legal status, that they do have rights. And we have talked with all of our clients about what their rights are and what they can do to protect themselves. And then we've also set up a whole advocacy process and program at the Institute, and are recruiting more and more people every day to help use their voices against what's happening in our communities. So we're doing a lot. We wish we could do more, but there's a lot at stake. Yeah. Okay, I'll go to the next question. The news is overwhelming, and it seems like there's a new policy impacting immigration nearly daily. How are you prioritizing your advocacy efforts? Bill, do you want to start?
Sure. Our focus right now, even though the refugee program is suspended and parolees are being, their status is being changed and eliminated daily, we're focused on providing support to those people that are already here. The way our programs are structured for refugees, we provide support to people for up to 5 years after their arrival. The people that arrived before January 20th are still here under the refugee program. And so as actions are taken in the states, we look to see what will be the most detrimental or have the most immediate impact on our clients. And we work to make sure that we can continue to support them. In Massachusetts, that means that we are asking for, promoting, and looking to see that state funding for what we do continues in areas such as providing mental health services, in providing ESOL classes, and helping people on the legal path to citizenship. In New Hampshire, we've seen more anti-immigrant legislation, as we mentioned, Zan, you mentioned earlier, driver's license restrictions and the like, and we are looking to make sure that those bills and the things that are happening now don't impact the clients that we have who are here. And then past that, where we can, we will get involved with federal legislation, and we talk to our federal legislators quite frequently to encourage them to continue to push back against the anti-immigrant narrative and actions in the federal government.
Thanks, Bill. I have one more question that's sort of connected. Great if you could quantify the impact of White House policies on the Massachusetts economy as it relates to jobs and industries impacted.
I'll start, but I'll start, but I think, we all gotta get some facts. I would say, first of all, our concern is, with all of our clients, but in particular, we have served about 15 or 16,000 humanitarian parolees from Haiti over the past several years. Many of those folks are now working in the economy in a variety of jobs, many entry-level jobs. So they're working in hotels, they're working in the back office or the back of the house in restaurants. They are working in elder care. Lots of people are working in elder care. And so if these people lose their status, can no longer work, and are deported from the United States, what we're going to see employers without valuable workers. We're going to see families without enough income, and so that's going to lead to that's a crisis in housing. We're going to see some kids without getting enough attention who are in our school districts, and we're going to see a lot of disarray in communities. I'll give you an example. Last week, I spoke to a senior living facility in Massachusetts, won't say where or what, and the group of seniors and this HR director came up and said, of my 300 staff, 16 have TPS, 16 have temporary protected status. They're from Haiti. What do you think is going to happen to them? And I said, I don't know. You might lose those 16 workers. And, that would be devastating to that organization. Those 16 people are direct care workers working with elderly populations. So that's an example of what we're going to see in Massachusetts.
I'll just add, I think 20%, a little over 20% of the Massachusetts economy is immigrant. And those are people here on all types of different legal statuses. The US makes it really hard to stay and to create a pathway to permanent residency and to citizenship. So there's a huge part of our economy that would be impacted and is vulnerable to this level of change and closure of legal pathways. Bill, were you gonna add?
Yeah, just laying out actual numbers from the 2023 fiscal year, just to put it in perspective, there were 56,000 plus refugees in Massachusetts, and they paid almost $1 billion in taxes. The refugee household income was $3.4 billion, with $2.5 billion in spending power. And that's just refugees that had been resettled in Massachusetts. Zan, as you mentioned, 20% of the workforce in Massachusetts are immigrants. And that's through the whole spectrum of the workforce, from entry-level jobs to doctoral level scientists doing research here. And they have paid in 2023 over $20 billion in taxes into Massachusetts. So, yeah, quite devastating to have an anti-immigrant narrative and a reduction in the number of immigrants here in Massachusetts, coupled with the impact on higher education, another major employment sector in the state.
Thank you. Okay, shifting a little, can you expand on how the idea of cultural pluralism shaped the early programming at the Boston office?
You want me to take that one?
Good start.
I'll start. You better help me out. So, I mean, our foundress, a social worker, Edith Bremer Terry, believed that we should be celebrating people's unique heritages, and that we should help people integrate into the United States of America, not assimilate. And her teaching was that we should help people be proud of their native culture. They should be proud of their heritage. They should learn English, but they should keep their native tongue. They should be proud of their religion and practice it if they have one. And they should take all of their values and bring it into the culture of the United States and make it stronger. So today we do that with just about everything we do. We want people to be proud of their Afghan, Ukrainian, Haitian, Somalian heritage. We celebrate last week. We had celebrations of Haitian Flag Day. It was actually great education for all of us on staff to hear about the heritage of the people that we were serving, and from Haiti in particular. And and obviously we're trying to get people into the economy as fast as possible, which includes learning English, the same work that was done years ago, helping them get a good first job, teaching them skills to advance in the economy, and eventually to stay here legally.
Thanks, Jeff. I guess I'd just add, in terms of that early programming, which we weren't around for, but we have really deep and fascinating, beautiful archives that we spent a long time now going through, trying to understand the incredible parts of our history. So I would say that early programming wasn't just about a transactional relationship with individuals. The early programs were community centers, and I think designed to break isolation down, not only between like a newcomer group and US born people, but within newcomer groups, multiple different communities and cultures. And there was just an incredible emphasis on the joy of being different, and bringing your unique identity to the US. And there was there were dances, there were cultural conversation groups, there were social groups it just seemed like there was a real emphasis on breaking through into like breaking down barriers to people actually identifying as a social group and a community. And I think we do a lot of work now in our programs to help new people feel connected, not only to us, but to each other. But there's also a huge emphasis ever since 1980 on this very specific and highly detailed federal resettlement program. So there's really a combination now of like doing the work in a really specific way to get people on their feet as soon as possible, and also leaving room for that sort of joy of celebrating their welcome, and connecting them to communities. Okay, let me go to the next question. I was moved by the story of the Ravensbrook rabbits. How do those early experiences with survivors influence how you support trauma today?
Zan, you're the best.
Start? Okay.
I mean, come on, you're the social worker. You're the best.
Yes. So I'm a social worker. I started many years ago, in part to run a counseling program for people who are new. We assume we sort of work from the perspective of holding everyone's trauma and everyone having experienced some level of trauma. That is a part of the experience of displacement, and it's core to the refugee resettlement program itself. So I think I was also moved by the story of the Ravensbrook rabbits, and it was like one of those incredible pieces of our history that I hadn't understood, and sort of the depth of that. I think it really puts into perspective the component of our work that address, even within like public contracts and services that have to be performed in a specific way, in a specific period of time. Even in that context, that we're also performing an act of healing for a lot of people. The act of welcoming is an act of healing. And I think the programs that we've developed and designed have always had a trauma focus. Our staff themselves are coming from many different sort of professional backgrounds, including social work and trauma-informed experiences in education. And that I mean, that was here when I first showed up. I think reaching back into our past, it makes a lot of sense to me that there was even in the foundation of the work, the um, identification, sort of the acknowledgement of what people have lost on, on their journeys, and how this is an opportunity. I mean, we talk a lot about the economic impact of immigrants, but there's also this incredible impact on their spirit. Just the opportunity to start over in peace. And in that, there's an opportunity to heal. So I think that's the way it's connected to the work that we do today.
Yeah, I would just add a couple things. One, it's important to remember that the founderess of the International Institutes was a social worker. That was Edith Bremerteri's profession, same as Zan's and as of many of our staff. And so she came into this work understanding human need, human trauma, and wanted to find a way to respond to it. So that's important. The other thing is that there are 8 resettlement agencies in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that serve thousands of people each year and are at our core. This is from Western Mass to Central Mass to Metro West to Eastern Mass and down to the southern part of the state. What to our core, what unites all of us is that we are bound by a common mission to serve people who are fleeing difficult circumstances, including persecution. And by the very nature of fleeing those kind of circumstances and being uprooted, think of the Afghans who were uprooted from Afghanistan, had good lives there. Think of the people from Haiti who would love to be back in Haiti. Think of the people from Ukraine. All of those folks, thousands and thousands of folks, have suffered enormous trauma. And our role across the state, our agency and others, is to support them and to help them to readjust, to manage and address and come to terms with their trauma and learn English and integrate and raise children. And so it's quite a challenge that all of our teams have to do.
Okay, on the note of partners, can you talk about your partners, including other resettlement agencies and humanitarian organizations? How do they help with this important cause?
I'll start, and then I think, Zan, you should talk about some of the partners we have. I mean, so across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there are 8 resettlement agencies representing various faiths, backgrounds, and non-faith backgrounds. We meet every 2 weeks. We share ideas and best practices. We meet in person. We lobby together. We're all united in trying to get more funding for English for speakers of other languages classes, for additional support for refugees who come here who need more funding to pay their bills when they first get started in a high-cost state like Massachusetts. So it's a really robust network of friends and colleagues in this field that are trying to help one another while we're trying to help thousands of clients. And we came together because not that long ago, we were all of a sudden, inundated, or inundated maybe the wrong word, but all of a sudden, thousands of people from Afghanistan came to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, all of a sudden. And we were trying to find housing for them, trying to find ways to help them. And that's how we all kind of got to know each other and started supporting one another a lot. So we have this really wonderful network of good friends that are in this mission together. And it feels good to have them on ours as I have partners. And then, across our region, we partner with hospitals, healthcare facilities, school districts. Zan, maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Massachusetts has an incredible amount of support programs that kind of do the work of filling the gaps in terms of both what our taxes and our social safety net doesn't connect and fill, but also what, like, harnessing community efforts and support and giving individuals in the community a place to show up for other people. And it's been incredible to have so many challenges over the last several years, including Trump 1 and COVID, and then wave after wave of evacuations from Afghanistan, from Ukraine, from Haiti. But what happened was that those challenges really brought the community of immigrant support service professionals together. And that has been some of the silver linings, sort of the most exciting opportunities we've had in the last couple of years, both at the state level, then with the rest of the states in New England. So I would say our immigrant services community is incredibly important and works in collaboration more than ever. But also, like Jeff said, there's so many other providers that we connect to, because a lot of our work is connecting people to the rest of the resources in every community. So that's everything from an organization that helps women with menstrual products in Lowell to a skills training partner that we have in Boston. And really the opportunities are to help more and more providers understand the refugee and immigrant experiences, and particularly their immigration status, which provides them eligibility or not into certain services. So a lot of our work is both connecting to other organizations, but then also helping them understand how to best serve immigrants. Okay, going back to advocacy, are there any upcoming bills or legislative efforts we can support that would help restore or protect humanitarian programs? It's a good one.
Sure. And in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts right now, there is, of course, the budget deliberations going on. And there are there's two specific things now. One of them has been withdrawn. But the ESOL funding, which currently we hope sits at about $10 million, will continue to allow the various providers to continue English classes. And there is significant demand for that. Obviously, if you are an immigrant here, if English is not your first language, learning English and improving your English skills means you're eligible for better employment and to be more productive and be better able to support your family. There is also in the budget consideration of providing additional funding for legal support for immigrants, something that's sorely needed now with respect to everything that's happening with respect to what ICE is doing and what the administration is doing. New Hampshire is in many respects goes the other way. It's been more about attempting to make sure that some of the bills that are out there don't pass, since they're additionally restrictive, and really put significant barriers in the way of immigrants working and continuing to thrive in New Hampshire. So for support, it's continue to contact your senators at this point to support ESOL, to support legal training or legal support, and also obviously at the federal level, it's everything we can do to reject the current anti-immigrant provisions in the budget bill, which are truly horrible in terms of what they are doing to effectively remove any kind of federal support for immigrants.
I'll just add, we just built and launched a whole advocacy page on our website. I don't know if we can put it in the Q&A, but that's just also a way to kind of get connected and some of our efforts, as well as some of the ways you can help support good legislation and fight against current legislation. Okay, I think we've got, let's see, one more question. What does resilience look like in practice for your staff and clients, especially during policy rollbacks? Jeff, you want to start talking about staff?
I'll start talking about staff. I mean, it's not an easy time. It's not an easy time for a staff. I'd be lying if I'd said it was. I think I'm impressed by how resilient our staff is. I mean, I might be coming in. I've actually literally I was coming in the office the other day and I was just thinking about all the challenges we face, and I ran into one of our younger, they're all younger than me now, but this staff member who was in employment And, you know, they were high-fiving each other, these two staff members, because they just got a client a job. And so our staff, you know, they keep going, they keep working. Our English for speakers of other languages staff, sometimes I'll pop into the classes just to see what's going on. And that, you know, students are engaged, teachers are teaching. So our team is working very hard. Our unaccompanied children program, which got cut substantially because of fewer kids coming into the program. I met with that group the other day. They're animated, they're serving kids, they're working very hard. So I'm always impressed by the resilience of our team. At the same time, to be completely honest, you know, our staff is looking at the numbers, they're looking at the trends across the country, and they can be discouraged.
Yeah, well, first I'll just say to whomever asked this question, thank you, because it's such a great question. And I think probably throughout our whole history, the staff that have stuck with us and helped deliver our mission have had to be resilient, because policy has changed dramatically time and time again. But it's never easy, particularly now where I think we've mentioned, like, we built up a very, very big operation in the last several years, and have had the opportunity to take care of so many more people than we ever have before. And to see some of that come apart is really, really challenging, particularly because we just have built these wonderful teams who I think, you know, I've been here a while, like, are working together better, more effectively than they ever have. And we also have some of the positions that we've always dreamed of now, which is like people who can help support the workloads and help support documentation for clients and help greet them at the front office. We just have lots of great positions and people in place. So it's really hard to see some of that threatened. At the same time, we have right now more work than ever. We have about 11,000, a little over 11,000 people in services, and everyone is working really, really hard. But like Jeff said, I think we've been really, really transparent and honest and tried to translate all of the information that we get. We're really preparing for the impact of the FY26 federal budget, which starts in October, and trying to find as much new funding as we can, because we know a lot of our funding won't be renewed by the federal government. So like Jeff said, I think the work with our client population helps, I think, is a great model of resilience for our staff. And I think they get a lot of, they pull a lot of resilience from that model our clients provide. And then in terms of resilience for our clients, I mean, I would hate to say this, but I would say what's happening now could be perceived by some people as yet another disappointment, yet another place in the world that won't allow them to stay and won't allow them to build a life and a home. And that is some of the most devastating part of what's happening now. We really take heart and pride in being the place people land and call home. But I really do think for the people who make it here in these programs, particularly the refugee program, but all of the programs that have been displaced and forced to leave and have made it all the way here, I mean, that's the definition of resilience. So I would say people are trying to hold on, trying to understand what they can do about their situation. And one of the greatest challenges that, although the government is rolling back policies and discontinuing protections, it's not really clear what that means. So, for example, the government just de-documented a lot of Venezuelan temporary protected status holders, but hasn't really explained what that means and when it means whatever it means. So I think there's still a lot of people in limbo, which is unfortunately a really familiar state for a lot of people who've been displaced. Okay, one more question, and we can wrap up. This one might be a little tough. How do you see the Institute's advocacy during the JFK era reflected in today's political climate?
Bill, you should start.
Just
Thanks, Jeff.
go back.
Zan, I mean, our advocacy during the JFK era and our advocacy today, in many respects, hasn't changed. What we have always been trying to do is to promote and advocate for a humanitarian and rational immigration policy. The U.S. history of immigration policies, unfortunately, is um, rife with crisis, if you will, and rife with less than perfect objectives. An example being the quota system that was mentioned during the webinar. That quota system was not put in to promote family reunification. It was put in to limit the number of people who could come here from most of the world other than Western Europe and Northern Western Europe. So we're doing what we have always done, which is talking to legislators, talking to the administration, and promoting rational, humanitarian, and valuable immigration policy. The difference being in the Kennedy administration, we had a very responsive ear. And not just JFK, it was Ted Kennedy who was really the linchpin in promoting the refugee resettlement program. So we had obviously a different era, but our overall goals are the same here.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Two questions just popped in, I think, based on my response to resiliency of the organization and everyone in it. And so I'll just ask one because they're very similar, and this will be our last. How much are you anticipating losing in funding from the federal government in FY26? This may be a range of best case to worst case scenario.
So I'll start. We have done a lot of scenario planning based on potential losses in federal funding. We know that, well, right now the House has passed a budget that has cut substantially federal funding that we would receive next year. There's money that's unspent for some of our clients from fiscal years 23, 24, and 25 that will carry over. So we, may see reductions in federal funding in the next fiscal year 26, which starts on October 1st, as high as 50% from what we received in previous years. And so what we are doing as an organization is applying aggressively for both private funding from as many supporters as possible and increasing state funding opportunities. So that includes looking for workforce development opportunities at the state level, which we've applied for, doing more work in the shelter system, including providing stabilization services to people after they've been rehoused, some work that we've never done before, English for speakers of other language classes, and other competitive grants that we're applying for at the state level. So it's a combination of trying to fill that bucket of lost federal funds with state funding and private funding.
Thanks, Jeff. And this is the perfect segue just to closing out our webinar today, which is how you can help. We're emphasizing this because our mission is a mission that runs on community engagement and support. And like Jeff said, we are expecting less funding from the federal government, which means we need to rely on our communities for more support. And that is specific to the thousands of families we are caring for. So here's a couple of ways. Like Jeff said in the beginning of the presentation, you can join us next week for our centennial celebration. We've been planning this for a couple of years now. It's been very exciting to go through all of our history, some of which we pulled out and shared with you today. Such an inspiring period that we've been through, but there's really the emphasis on looking forward into the next century, into the rest of the 21st century, and all of the impact we want to have. And as Jeff mentioned earlier, it's not too late to buy tickets to the centennial, to show up for us to show up and enjoy this incredible evening that we have planned on June 4th, which is next Wednesday. So please go to this link if you'd like to purchase tickets, and we would love to see you there. The second is donating. We're hoping everyone will be able to donate to the Institute this year to help us serve the families in need that are in our services. Again, over 11,000 people. You can scan the QR code. You can go to our website. We're actually looking to add 100 monthly donors this year. Those are people who contribute every month in any amount. Even $5 in monthly donation makes a huge and lasting difference. And then finally, sponsoring a family. We have a community sponsorship program, which allows individuals to join into groups and help actually resettle families with us and alongside of us. And that provides the greatest opportunity for support and integration a family could have in the beginning. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, we have this great new page on our website about lots of details and information on how to get involved in our advocacy, how to turn your words into action by using your voice. And that's by also joining our advocacy group. Our groups meet regularly. They include policy briefings, action items, dedicated time to organize advocacy efforts, to socialize with other like-minded and fellow advocates and activists. And all experience levels are welcome. You don't need to know or have had any advocacy experience in the past. And this is a great way to get informed about our work and to get involved and also to have a tangible impact on what's happening now. So again, you can visit our website to look at some of the tools you can use on your own or to join us in our efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to everybody who supports us, and have a great evening. We look forward to seeing you on June 4th. Take care.
See you next week.